Okay, just welcome everybody to our Bible study tonight. And like I mentioned to everyone here, we're going to go through a series on fear. And we're going to start with the Old Testament on studying about fear. And as I mentioned, everyone has struggles with fear. I mean, people have fear of snakes, fear of heights, fear of the dark. And then there's other kind of fears. A lot of people like watching horror movies because they like to be afraid. But then there's other fears that are even harder. They're deeper, and it's a lot of times it keeps us from doing things. And so what we want to do is go through a story in the Old Testament, and it's found in the book of Numbers, Numbers 13. And for those of you watching, we're eating, so I'm eating while I'm talking. 13 verse 1 of the book of Numbers. Let me get mine going. And again, just a quick background. The Israelites have left being slaves there in Egypt, and they're being led out by Moses, and they're on their way to the promised land because God had given them that promise to live in the promised land. So that's where we're going to be. Okay, starting with verse 1. Let me open, like I said, let me open mine up. It says, verse 1 says, "The Lord spoke to Moses, send men to scout out the land of Canaan. I'm going to the Israelites. I'm giving to the Israelites, send one man who is a leader among them from each of their ancestral tribes." Okay, so in verse 1, what did the Lord tell Moses? Yeah, to go get men. To do what?
He says to spy out the land of Canaan.
Okay, yeah, to spy out the land, Canaan, that God was giving to them, right? Because he says, I am giving to the Israelites that land. That was the promised land. So that's what they were supposed to do. Okay, so then jump down all the way to verse 16. And follow as I read along. It says, "These were the names of the men of Moses, the men Moses sent to scout out the land. And Moses named Hoshea, son of Nun, Joshua. When Moses sent them to scout out the land of Canaan, he told them, 'Go up this way to the Negev, then go up into the hill country. See what the land is like, and whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. Is the land they live in good or bad? Are the cities they live in encampments or fortifications? Is the land fertile or unproductive? Are there trees in it or not? Be courageous. Bring back some of the fruit from the land. It was the season for the first ripe grapes. Okay, so what were they supposed to do? Mm-hmm. And what were they going to look for?
What type of land they live on, if they were rich or poor, what was their environment,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what type of environment,
Yeah.
fertile land,
What? Fertile land or not? Yeah, definitely. And why was he telling them to do this? Because he had promised it to them. I mean, this was God was giving it to them, and it's kind of like, have you ever gotten a gift for someone and they said, "Why don't you go look like a car or something, or you're gonna get a house, but you're gonna go see it first, right? You want to see what it's like. You want to see if it's too big of a house or too small of a house, all that stuff, right? I mean, that's what God was saying. Go check out the land, okay? Go check it out and see what's out there, okay? So Moses faithfully sends it. Verse 21. So they went up and scouted out the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob, near the entrance of Hamath. They went up through the Negev and came to Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, were living. Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes, which was carried in a pole by 2 men. They also took some pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster of grapes the Israelites cut there. At the end of 40 days, they returned from scouting the land. So, what did they find? What did they find? And grape. And so there was fruit there. It wasn't a desert, right? And they went all these different places. And they were there 40 days, right? Okay. So let's keep on reading. Verse 26. Notice what it says. The men went back to Moses, Aaron, and the entire Israelite community in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back a report from them and the whole community, and they showed them all the fruit of the land. They reported to Moses, "We went into the land where you sent us. Indeed, it is flowing with milk and honey, and here is some of its fruit. However, the people living in the land are strong, and the cities are large and fortified. We also saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites are living in the land of the Negev. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live by the sea and along the Jordan." Okay, so what kind of news did they bring back? Uh-huh. What else? Yeah, it really was a great land. Notice verse 28 says, however, okay, the people are strong. What else? The cities are what? Are fortified. Yeah, and we saw the descendants of Anak. Those people were supposed to be giants. So in other words, there were giants in the land. So is all that positive? No, I mean they're saying yeah, it's got a lot of fruit, it's very fertile land, but but the people are giants. They're strong. The cities are fortified. It's, it means like it's got walls, and it's got weapons to keep people from attacking. And so here they're saying, wow, this is what it's like. A lot of negative, right? But let's go on, verse 30. Notice what it says. Then Caleb quieted the people in the presence of Moses and said, we must go up and take possession of the land because we can certainly conquer it. So Caleb, one of those 12 that went, what was he saying? Did he say it like the others? Yeah, he's saying, yeah, we can do it. The other ones are saying, no, the people. What? Yeah, he was thinking positive. Okay. Okay, let's go on because here's where we begin to talk about fear. Verse 31, but the men who had gone up with him responded, we can't go up against the people because they are stronger than we are. So they gave a negative report to the Israelites about the land they had scouted. Okay, so basically what were they saying? Yeah, they were scared. We can't do it, basically. We can't do it. Caleb said you could, and actually Joshua. So 2 of those 10 said, we can do it, but 10 of them said, no, we can't do it. And why did they say that? Out of fear. Okay. So, let's go on. Verse 32, so they gave a negative report to the Israelites about the land they had scouted. The land we passed through to explore is one that devours the inhabitants, and all the people we saw in it are men of giant size. Okay, and so it's interesting. Other translations put that word. Let me find it here. The report. It says they gave him a bad report. Okay, they gave all the people a bad report. Some translation put an evil report. And so basically they went around telling everyone, no, you can't do it, can't do it, can't do it. Have you ever heard people like that? Oh, we can't. Let's not do it. And you know what? It's all based on fear. But was it based on fact?
No, because they hadn't even tried it.
They hadn't even tried it. It was not based on fact. It was based on just what they saw. But all the Israelites hadn't seen it, just 10 men. Well, 12. 2 of them said, yes, we can. 10 of them said, no, we can't. So really, they were basing it all on just what 10 men said, even though 2 said we can. Notice verse 33. They even said things that aren't really true. They said, look, in 32, they said, we passed through to explore it, and the land is one that devours its inhabitants. Does it really? Did the land devour its inhabitants? That's kind of false, of false rumors, right? Okay, all the people we saw in it are men of great size. Well, that's not true too. Some of them were. Some were giants. You know, like in the future, there's a Goliath that was a giant, but not everyone was. So in some ways, they're sharing false things based on what? Fear. Doesn't that happen a lot? When people start getting afraid, rumors start going around, right? Oh, this or that, you know, and then people start, wow, yeah, maybe, and that happens, and next thing you know, everyone is filled with fear, and based on what?
Just rumors.
Yeah, it's kind of like last week when the pipeline got hacked in Georgia. Georgia's 3 days away, and I was driving in from just south of San Antonio, and as I come into the valley, there were all these lines to convenience stores. I said, "What's going on?" And then someone said, "Oh yeah, because everyone's afraid their gas is going to run out." But that's in Georgia. It's not in Texas. It doesn't affect Texas. But all the gas stations people were sitting in line because they were afraid gas was going to run out. Was it based on truth? No. It's all these rumors. And so we can easily get caught up in those fears and rumors. Okay, and so notice he keeps on saying, there were descendants of the Anak come from the Nephilim. Okay, they were even saying, wow, these are the giants. And the Nephilim, if we go back to chapter 6 of Genesis, we studied that when we studied with angels. Remember that it was some of the angels came down and had relations with the women of men, and they had giants, Nephilim, men of renown. These are what they were talking about. It's like, oh no, these are people that aren't just human. They're part celestial beings. They're half and half. They're hybrids, you know. And again, it's growing the fear. And notice what it says next. To ourselves we seem like grasshoppers, and we must have seemed the same to them. I mean, they were kind of like this, looking up, and you know, it's like, and they probably got smaller and smaller and smaller. I mean, I remember the first time I spoke in public. You know, it was in high school. I was close to 6 feet, but I felt this big. You know, you feel really small. But again, it's your own perception. It has nothing to do with reality. You know, you feel that small. That's what fear does. Fear can overtake you and distort reality. Fear can make things seem real that are not really real. Okay? There might have been Nephilim, there might have been giants, but not everybody was. You know? So let's go on. Chapter 14, verse 1. Okay, this is what happens when a little fear grows out of control. Verse 1, it says, then the whole community broke into loud cries, and the people wept that night. Can you imagine? I mean, we're talking 2 million people, and everyone is filled with fear. All the Israelites complained about Moses and Aaron, and the whole community told them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in the wilderness. Can you imagine that? Now they're so afraid, they're saying, it would have been better dying as a slave. Even though they treated us terrible, it was better life in the past. You know, have you ever been there and you find yourself placed full of fear, and you think of the past and how great the past was, when in reality, really, the past wasn't that great, right? Because your mind, you start believing how big the fear is.
It's almost like catastrophizing, thinking the worst.
Yeah, And it keeps on bigger and bigger. Fear does that. It takes over your mind. And some people, you know what it does? It immobilizes them. They can't do nothing. Kind of like here, it's like crying, and you just kind of freeze. I've seen people freeze like that because fear takes over. Then verse 2, all the Israelites complained about Moses and Aaron. The whole community told them. Oh yeah, we read that. Verse 3, why is the Lord bringing us into the land to die by the sword? Now they're even turning against God. They're saying, why is the Lord bringing us into the land to die by the sword? Who said they were going to die? Didn't the Lord promise them that land? Didn't the Lord said they would go and take it? Didn't the Lord do that? Where are these people that are going to kill them by the sword?
So they're getting all these thoughts just by they're jumping to conclusions.
But that's what fear does. Fear does that to a person. You jump to conclusions. What if? What if? What if? And then you feel with fear, and you fear something that probably will never happen. And you're all feel, and it's not based on actual truth, but maybe what you've heard or what you may have seen or perceived. They saw cities with walls, but where was the trust in the Lord? Okay, where was the trust in the Lord? And so it was not there. Uh, okay, so verse 4, look what it says. So they said to one another, let's appoint a leader to go back to Egypt. Wow, it's even gotten so out of hand that they said, forget Moses, let's find us someone who will take us back so we can be slaves and live a terrible life rather than go forward and live on the promises of God. Okay? We're in Numbers chapter 14, verse 4. Okay, so do you see what fear can do? You see what fear can do? Okay, hey, let's go back. Let's find us someone. Okay, fear is going to become fear is something that we're going to see in just a little bit. Verse 5, then Moses and Aaron fell down with their faces to the ground in front of the whole assembly of the Israelite community. Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who scouted out the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite community, the land we passed through and explored is an extremely good land. If the Lord is pleased with us, He'll bring us into this land, and a land flowing with milk and honey. So Caleb and Joshua, they were there. They saw it. They said, we can do it. They just tore their clothes and just like they can't believe it. In grief. They used to do that in those days when there was a lot of grief. They would tear their clothes. And they said, look, if God is pleased with us, He's going to bring us into the land. See, that's a person talking who doesn't base their life on fear. They don't live off of fear. They live off of the promises of God. See, as someone who follows God, God has given us a lot of promises. And we should live our life based on those promises. Fear only keeps us from reaching those promises. Okay? He said, hey, He gave it to us. He will bring us into the land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and He'll give it to us. But notice verse 9. Notice what He says. Only don't rebel against the Lord. Have you ever thought about that? Fear is rebellion. Have you ever thought that certain kinds of fear is rebelling against God? Why would it be rebellion right here at this exam? This kind of fear, why would it be rebellion?
Because he said to go and we wanted to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Not obey.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're not trusting that God would accomplish his promises. They don't. What really is the problem is not what God will do, but the real problem is they don't really believe God is God. They don't believe he's all powerful, he's all knowing, he's sovereign, he's all seeing. They don't believe he can do anything. They really don't truly believe in that God, our God. And that's why it's rebellion, because you're saying, I don't believe you, God. And so some fear can be rebellion against God. That's why he's saying, only don't rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of the people of the land, for we will devour them. Look what he says, we will devour them. And isn't that look how different it is from all the other 10. The other one said, we can't do it, they're gonna beat us, they're giants, but here is Caleb and Joshua said, we're gonna eat them up. Their protection has been removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Don't be afraid of them. See what happened? He said, hey, there's no protection for them. God has already given that. There's some promises that we need to stand on and not be afraid. Like for instance, the assurance of salvation. That's a promise that when you accept Jesus in your heart, no one can take that away. Salvation, no one could take your salvation away. Eternal life, no one could take it's there, it's done. But a lot of times we walk around like we really don't believe it. Like it's true. And in some ways that's kind of a rebellion. Because we're saying, no, God, what you said is not true. It's one thing for a non-believer to say it, but one thing when you accept Jesus, what you're really saying, I accept you, but I really don't believe you. No, you got to truly believe it. And notice, verse 10, the whole community threatened to stone them. But look at that. It says, while the whole community threatened to stone him, the glory of the Lord appeared to all the Israelites in the tent of meeting. It's like God's not going to sit around and let them stone his faithful people. He said, okay, no, I'm going to show up. Okay, here I am. Okay. And then there, as he showed up, verse 10, look what happens. The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people despise me? How long will they not trust in me despite all the signs I performed among them? I will strike them with a plague and destroy them. Then I will make you into a greater and mightier nation than they are. So God had enough.